The man
Call somebody,
is back,
tell
y'all.
somebody.
We're
He's
back.
back. Call
He's
your
back.
mama, call your
Tony,
daddy.
we're back, and we're back.
We're back.
Tony McGee,
He's back, y'all.
We're back. Tony
Hey.
McGee. Come on.
Tony McGee, Pro Football Plus. Tony McGee, Pro Football Plus. Tony McGee, Pro Football Plus. Tony McGee.
What's up?
Welcome to the 19th edition this year of Tony McGee's Pro Football Plus. The one thing about it, when you come back, and we always talk about Tony's tape, you start looking back and you digress and looking back what you thought this season was going to be. Here we are in the 19th week. We're looking at some teams in the playoffs. We got young quarterbacks. Do you realize that we could have two rookies in the Super Bowl? But the one thing we got to deal with now is the Washington Commanders. We thought they were going to be one of the best. They became one of the worst. We thought their quarterback was growing, but the other quarterbacks grew a lot more. We thought their offensive line was bad, but I got a chance to see one lineman that's still in the number 60. I ain't going to tell you what team is. He wears 65. He's on the team, and he's worse than our lineman. But first of all, let's get to it. We're going to look a little bit at these Commanders right now, Donna. You called me raving, talking about they got the general manager they need. I thought Martin Mayhew was doing pretty good. Now, you know I had this argument with you over the week because you look at a lot of the people that Martin brought in, they're still first stringers and starting elsewhere in the playoffs.
Tony, come on. Yeah, I know it's, early in the morning and all of that, but come on, Tony. If you said that they brought in people, those people, the player personnel was not getting the job done, Tony. They would not have just won 4 games if the right people were in the house. Not knocking Martin Mayhew, because I don't think that he had full control. I think that was Ron Rivera who had full control as far as player personnel. So they had to bring somebody in, Tony, and I think that they hit a home run in Adam Peters, former general manager for the San Francisco 49ers, and we know what they've done, championships. He was with Denver. He's always been a winner, and this is his first opportunity to be a general manager. So this Commanders leadership, they moved quickly, Tony, because this was the #1 man on their list in getting Adam Peters. And I think that, Tony, his resume speaks for itself as far as him being a winner, him getting the right personnel in the house. And this Commanders leadership wants to move fast also in picking the head coach. And Rick, you got to help me out, because Tony already is behind the 8 ball if he thinks that this Commanders team already had the right people in the house. Because if that was a fact, Rick, they would be in the playoffs, and we wouldn't be talking about them being outside the windows.
Oh man, you don't
Donna,
don't be trying
I'm
to get
so
Rick.
surprised.
Don't try to get Rick to get in this.
Tony
I
is
know
the
you
weight.
know he's gonna agree with you anyway. So.
At this time in the
No,
morning,
Tony, he's only going to agree with me because I'm telling the truth, and you still sleeping or something.
It's Donna. Look, we know the outcome of this. We've been doing this for a long time, and I'm just so happy to see Tony. I mean, the fact that he's up and that he's with us, man, I'm thrilled.
39
Tony
years,
reminds
Doc.
me
We've been knocking this out for 39 years.
Look, I am so happy. And shout out to Novena, man. The great job that she's done getting you dressed. I mean, you look good. All the stuff that she's got to do. I mean, she's the caregiver of the year. So shout out to you, Novena. Look, I'm glad we've got this going on now, because what we had wasn't working. We hired a dud, and the guy that hired the dud was a dud. So you have to go in now and reassess everything. Martin Mayhew was with Peters in San Francisco. Everybody knows that Martin wasn't allowed to do his job. He was being puppeteered by the whole Carolina contingency, and it's all rotten, and it's under 500-ish, and it was a scam that's gone bad. So I just want to flush, move forward, and then see what we do now, because it's going to come down to what it always comes down to. Playmakers. We got very few of them. And if you had, you wouldn't be in dead last place back-to-back years. So I'm ready to move on.
And you know, if you think about it, the bad thing about it, they did not win a game in their own in their own division. At the same time, their division turned out to be not the beast of the East, but the least of the East. But what gets me is you look at the different now, look at the quarterback development throughout the league, and that's the one thing I do have to say against. How can all these other teams go out and find these quarterbacks that they walk in and they have the game figured out, but we have a quarterback that we have to figure it out for him, and if we get 50%, we're talking about we got the quarterback of the future. We never did that before, Donna, and you know that.
Well, Tony, but back to what Rick was saying, if you don't have the right personnel in place to assess talent, I mean, they were thrown into a situation over the last probably 6 or 7 years of not getting the right quarterback, whether it was a veteran quarterback or what. They went to get these retread quarterbacks that was on their way out. So how were they going to ever get this right and develop a young quarterback if you didn't have the veteran quarterbacks in place to be able to groom them along? So they were dealt a card this past season in having to force themselves to go with Sam. Sam is not a bad quarterback, but he still needs some development. He was thrown into a bad situation with a bad team, with bad leadership that put them in this position over the course of time, Tony, over these last 4 years and even before that.
But
so
don't act like he didn't have some bad throws too. Now you act like.
But no, Tony, I'm not talking about he had bad throws, but he has to be able to be developed in time. When you're thrown into the far right off, you're either going to get through the far on the other side, or else you're going to burn a little bit. And he burned a little bit in the process of this year because, Tony, they were bad overall, a bad offensive line that has not been developed. And I'm hoping in the draft that they don't end up tripping themselves up. But I think with Adam Peters in the house and Martin, I don't know if they're going to keep him. But like Rick said, he has a past relationship with Peters. But I think that they finally got people in place, Tony, that we won't have to talk about the quarterback again, because they're going to blow up this house and build it from the foundation right.
And speaking of that, Doctor,
with the quarterback, Tony.
Doctor, you go to start. Okay, Doc, and that's what I want to ask you. You general manager right now, you know, and I'm glad to hear that about Martin. I hope it is an opportunity for him to stay, because I think he did a pretty good job. And as you said, Doc, he had some change on it. But Doc, would you go out there with that number 2 pick? Do you pick a quarterback? And if you pick him, what 3 quarterbacks do you keep on the roster? Or what 2 quarterbacks?
Well, first of all, Jacoby Brissett, they ought to give him an award for what he tried to do, sacrificing his game. They lied to him, got him in here, did not. There's never been a competition here. That's one of the fundamental problems that I have with this last regime. They give jobs away. You don't have to earn it. They give them away. And then if you are a part of their past, they bring you forward. And in your past, you have good memories about the guys. Then they lose their legs. They're older, and they can't stay healthy. It was a bad deal. It's almost like letting your kids pay your bills. They ain't put no money in the bank, but they writing checks. There was a detachment. It just couldn't have been worse. So you ruin whatever quarterback, all of them got their brains beat out. And then when you get to the point where you're in December, where you got to be your best, we couldn't beat the Giants and the Cleveland Browns when it mattered. So I can't move on from this group fast enough. The question now is, who's out there that fits what you want? The 3 quarterbacks. And again, I don't scout them. I look at them like everybody else. The guy in SC is incredible. Yeah. The guy in, but again, looking upside, the guy at LSU, I really like a lot. Big kid out of Carolina, seems like he's a stud. But that's the decision that the offensive coordinator and this group will have to make, not me. Because if it was me, I'd have a hard time passing on that boy at Penn State, that left tackle, who's big as Jacoby.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Rick.
You know, you just hit right in. You and Donna must have talked before the show, because I just didn't think I would take an offensive lineman that high in the draft that early.
No, I may not do too.
Get one of those premium quarterbacks. But
no,
you're right.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I'd have to look at it. But I'm also in a position, who else wants it? I need more players. My team, I had no Pro Bowl players. And we know that's a political thing as well. But the bottom line is that you couldn't stop a cold. You can't block nobody. You can't stop nobody. You can't cover nobody. first-round pick. That kid looked so lost, he couldn't even find the ball. I've never seen this. The people they pick, now maybe they'll bounce back. But right now, dude, you got to get more talent on this team.
Oh, you got to truth on that. And you know what? It starts with the offensive line, no matter what quarterback they get. If they do not upgrade the offensive line, but
hey, Tony, did you just say that? You said it starts with the offensive line, but
they don't start at the second draft choice, though. It starts a little bit further
Tony,
down
they can move down, Tony, as far as to get more because
I go with that, but you know. But Donna, we don't have the quarterback yet. They taught that quarterback of the future, but that future that was talking about the quarterback is gone now. It's a new future coming in here. You got to look at that guy, Donna. You know yourself on your job or anywhere else. If you don't do the work 50% of the time, you don't have a job.
Hey, Tony, but I'm going to need offensive linemen to protect me so I can have a job.
But not at the second pick, Donna. Not at the second.
See, Tony,
you know what? They should have fired you right along with the coach because you.
Hey, Tony, they need to fire you. Hey, Rick, they need to fire Tony because look at this, Tony. They can move down because they are in prime. This is probably the best position they had with their draft picks because they got multiple draft picks. So they can move down and still get one of these quarterbacks, but they can get offensive linemen that they want. This is the best draft in a while for quarterbacks and offensive linemen. But if you get that guy from Penn State, plus they've got multiple ones with other team, my list, I mean, Tony, for forever, I think that they've got enough in as far as the quarterback to be able to get past next year if they choose not to go quarterback. Because if I'm surprised, Tony, that you're not talking about building the offensive line because you always said through the season, you got to start with the defensive line, offensive line. And if you pass up like these offensive linemen that's out there where you picked Emmanuel Forbes, nothing against Emmanuel, but it was two top guys on that list and they passed by. But I'm going offensive line no matter what quarterback is out there, Tony, because not only do you need one offensive lineman, you need about 3 in this draft.
You just did, and that's where you and Doc have a very good point there. Whereas you can trade down and get that, but I do not take the number 2 pick because I know I can get the same lineman a little later in the draft in the second or third round. I know that I can get 2 or 3 linemen if you want to move down, but I do not know if I ever have an opportunity. You look at where we've been the last 4 or 5 years. Anything that it really has held this team back in a couple of years was the quarterback situation. When the quarterback got hurt, they haven't been able to change since. So what I'm looking at is if you have an opportunity to get a real franchise quarterback, not saying that this is not one, and maybe he will be, but right now you can get a young guy you can work. And like I don't know which one would be my backup, to tell you the truth right now, but I agree with you guys on this. The one thing we can't agree with this team came in, got better, then got worse. Never looked like they was in shape the last 2 or 3 years. One guy hasn't hit anybody since he got in the fight, but he's talking a good game, and I ain't saying his name. But at the same time, you look at this team overall, they got to start from the bottom. But the one thing about it, I know, and it's been over the years, and Doc, we've been doing this. Donna been on me for 25 or 30. We started this 39 years ago. It's always been the same. We had a quarterback back then. We had a Joe Fadman. Then we had 3 quarterbacks. Then we had guys that's coming in, each quarterback winning the Super Bowl. Look at that one thing when we say about winning the Super Bowl, 3 different quarterbacks. So what you got to do, you got to make that change when it's time. You can't just keep hanging on to that. But when you got the second pick, Donna, you got one of the 2 best players in the league if you do your homework.
Hey, Rick, you got to help me out, Rick.
No, I don't disagree.
But Tony, those offensive linemen might be gone.
Well, here's the key. Who's the coach? The coach,
there you go.
They choose. You got to ride his intuition. If you get a hot OC, and I look at what Caleb did at SC, we was running for his life. He was playing with a defense that was awful. And so we've probably got a preview of this team. And this dude's feet are incredible. You got to have an escape artist. That's why I like him or the kid from LSU, the only 2 people I'd even measure. Because you're going to be under some pressure year 1. He can't fix it all in 1 year. But if I could get who I want at 4 and somebody's dying to get that guy at 2, I'm collecting more assets.
Hello.
And maybe
Yes.
I don't get the 2 top offensive tackles, but let's say there's 4 or 5 of them. I'm going to get a couple because you're right. You need 2 of everything, damn near, on offense. You need 2 quarterbacks. You got to hope Jacoby, he going to give you the finger. He going to be out. And then if you get stuck with the kid, is he going to develop? And then who's the coach? So
Right.
the only special team that I've seen that's got that angel dust working with them is Detroit and Houston. Those are the 2 programs that, to me, remind me of where we are. You
Exactly.
in no man's land. You got to resurrect the dead. And Detroit was dead. And Houston was dead. So I only want people that have the ability to resurrect the dead. Because that's what we are. We're dead. And so that's the only 2 people I'm interested in. Because you know how this is, Tony. We came from teams that were losing. We were in situations that weren't great. You know that it's the things that get turned around that nobody talks about.
Exactly. You know,
And that's the
and
thing
Doc,
about it.
you know what? Fans, you heard it from you keep hearing me saying Doc Walker and I've been together 30-some years doing this. He's the doctor. He said you got to bring the dead back for this team to get better. He may have a point. And when we come back, we're going to talk about why did the teams in the playoffs seem to know they did resurrect the dead and we did not. When we come back, we'll be back in a moment and we'll talk a little more stuff.
Next.
Now we jump ahead a little bit and we're talking about the players that you have to have. And Rick hit a very good point. I don't know. Carol must be back there writing the notes because I know no way he knew how to do this. And then she had to write in crayon. He making people dead. And they know they call him the doctor. Now everybody in D.C. gonna say, Doc said they're dead. But at the same time, you know, you take a look at it and it's gonna come down. You said you got a general manager now. And Donna, you're right about that. This man been around everywhere you read about him or people talk about him. They say he's a winner. He's done well wherever he's gone. At the same time now, the next one, and they said they're going to do it routinely. They're going to check the GM first. And the next one is the coach. That's really where it's going to become important. And I tell you what, down there, have you heard any candidates that you are intrigued with? I mean, it's a lot of them out there right now. I see where Bill Belichick he's interviewing, so that means he's not through, but I don't know if I want a Belichick. But then maybe Belichick is the kind of guy you need here. What kind of coach are we looking for?
Well, Tony, you know what? I think Rick hit it on the head. He talked about a little bit about Detroit. He talked a little bit about the Texans. And Belichick, you look, Tony, you don't need these retreads and everything. You need these new, innovative, these coaches that can move this needle forward. And the Commanders have 7 on their list that they've gotten the opportunity to get the okay to interview. And it starts right there with offensive coordinator up there in Detroit as far as Ben Johnson. They like him a lot, Tony. He's a young guy, 36. I think he is 36 years old. And then they also they've got their defensive coordinator as far as Aaron Glenn. And then even for the Texans, I think Bobby Slowik was here in Washington at one time. They've got him on the list. So these are 2 guys that's in there. And also I think that Bieniemy was going to get an opportunity to be interviewed. And then you've got the Rams defensive coordinator, Raheem Morris. And then the Ravens, you know, up there with Anthony Weaver. I think they've already interviewed him. And then they've got the Ravens. When I'm talking about all these guys, they're guys that's in the playoffs still. And then you got, I like the Ravens defensive coordinator as far as Mike McDonald, and then the Cowboys' Dan Quinn. I don't know if I want to go with Dan Quinn after, that Dallas game. All year long, he played man coverage, and then he had them in zone against Green Bay, and they got torched. So, Tony, those are the names out there. Who do you all like as far as that list? Because when you look at that list, you got a lot of young guys that are doing well with these teams. I think that it will be freshness if they look at that. And then I think that Peters has a relationship with Bobby up there with the Texans and everything. So it's a good list. I mean, a great
I was
list.
down here. It's a good list down there, and I wouldn't take Dan Quinn off of that for the simple aspect that was a bad game he had. And now that the crybaby owner in Dallas is going to probably fire everyone. But Dan Quinn, I saw him working down here when I was in Atlanta, and I was a uniform inspector. One thing I like about him, he's not old school, he's old and new school, and he brings the team together, and he gives a family-type atmosphere. He's a very good defensive coordinator, and he's good people. Like Raheem was here with him as well. So that's a good two ties that you have right there. I like Dan Quinn. Now, that game the other day, he's not going to be in Dallas after that, Rick, because you know how that if you can look at the owner, and the owner of Philadelphia too, but at the same time, you got to just look at it. I don't know if I want retreads, new or what, but I'm looking at what these guys are doing. And Detroit is the example. And I tell you what, they have turned this whole thing around. But next in finding a coach is very important.
Yeah, and also when I mentioned Detroit and Houston, it was the worst situation. To me, this is a bad situation. So you got to have a workout artist. Don't be shocked by it because he's done it. And the players will believe in that. Dan Campbell's the guy. If I could get anybody, I want Dan Campbell. Mm-hmm. So I go and try to gorilla pimp, try to take somebody's head coach, and I know it's illegal. But you need somebody that we all laughed at him, talking about bite knees. When we brought in the pit bull here, this team got his feelings hurt. Eric Bieniemy was the guy. And they rejected him like he was like an alien because they're losers. And the one guy in here that was trying to beat the drum, they can't do nothing but find bad things about him. So that's why I hope he gets freed up so he can go and be appreciated. Kansas City probably be the first suitors. They saying to myself, oh, my God, you don't realize it until you don't have it, how good it was.
Exactly.
It's not friendly. It's not a country club. And these softies, that's why they can't tackle, because they never tackle, because they had that soft-ass camp. So give me somebody from Detroit, Houston, Baltimore, or San Francisco. And I think Peters is the guy who'll be able to navigate that. Because you just don't realize how bad this is.
Donna, did you listen to, I think another guy, one of my old teammates said that they always telling me, oh, Bieniemy, he needs to go too. Bieniemy, he's this. I just feel like they didn't give him an opportunity. As they said, when the coach had the opportunity to stand up for him when people were grumbling in the offseason, he did not. When the coach had the opportunity to stand up when the coordinator make a kind of statement that really kind of separates the team, he didn't speak up. Now that's where we're talking. We back to that leadership. We need a head coach with leadership. And I think Bieniemy, I think he deserves the opportunity, but I don't know. Just because he had a year in this culture, they may not give him that opportunity.
No,
hey, Tony, I never did say that they should not give Coach Bieniemy. I like the
Don't let me get the red cloth. Don't let me get the cloth.
Hey, no, Tony. If you roll back the tape, I did not say. I said the Commanders may not give him that opportunity. I like him. I told you from day one during training camp, you had the crybabies out there talking about he was working them too hard. Just like Rick said, they need somebody in here that's going to discipline them and push them forward. They're not used to winning, so they don't know how a winning coach coaches because they haven't had that in forever. So I never said that Bieniemy shouldn't have the opportunity to be here. I'm just saying that when they had new leadership coming in here, they're going to assess who they want, and Bieniemy may not be that guy. Should he get the opportunity? Yes, but if he does not get it here, he's going to have 7 jobs that's open right now to be able to get that. And like Rick said, Kansas City is missing him so bad. You don't know what's on the other side until they're gone, and then you're missing them. So, Tony, don't be trying to throw me under the bus saying that I want to be in the
You've been throwing people under the bus for the last 50 years. But you know what? I do have to hit a statement here, and this is not no statement that I'm trying to make a statement or anything, but I hope with all these jobs open that they do look at more African-American opportunities here. We need to start getting more of these coaches in here. You can look at how they have, how it's been for them the last few years. All these jobs open right now. I'd like to see some of these jobs being closed by African-Americans. With that being said, you have a
well, Tony, you do have one. Do you have one when up in New England, as far as when Belichick stepped down and everything, they already had that in the writing that
exactly.
Coordinator guy, they played defense up there. He coached for 5 years. He's going to be the head coach. So African-American already there, and they had that already in place.
And that's good because we need to have that. But now let's go back and we start talking about this team and we're looking at the playoffs and everything. Some of these guys that's in the playoffs now, some of these teams, they were getting new coaches at the new time and they last for a couple of years ago. Now you look at they here. But if you look at each and every one of them, we have to digress and go back to that quarterback is such a good, big situation. So I think now they need to get their coach. Speaking of that, hey, Rick, where's Gary? Is he's somewhere running for player of the year? And I don't mean football player either.
Gary Clark, you mean G?
Yeah, the G. That's right. You don't call him by his first. Yeah.
No, I know.
Where's G today?
He's like Prince. He's like Elvis. I mean, I just G. And everybody knows, man, I've been trying to run him down, man. He's working on so many different projects. And when your bank account is as fat as his, you know, I think he's addicted to that.
Is that what it is?
I try. I always encourage everybody, check on G, man, because the dude, he just so relentless in his pursuit of perfection. And when I was watching CD Lamb, all I could think about was Gary. Gary coming back to the huddle. And see, that's a nice guy.
Coach.
He needed Doug. See, Doug had to deal with the posse, man. And it is a lot of pressure. But I think that Dallas and poor Dak, nice guy. But at $55 million, come on, Slim. Be careful what you ask for.
You think
it just seems that they can't handle the pressure. Can't do it.
You know, and they were saying that kind of after that game the other night as well, that they felt like he as well as the quarterback up in Philadelphia did not perform to their up. Now, we knew a few weeks ago that the quarterback in Philadelphia was hurting. Then they showed his hand and everything. I mean, a dislocated finger, and you still go out and you play as well as you can. They still not talking about the defense, but we don't want to get to them first. Let's kind of finalize with this Washington team. One thing, Doc, that I saw, and when you were talking about number one draft choices, we had a defensive back. We had a couple defensive backs that went high, but we had one that went really high. I don't mind young players making mistakes. I don't mind young players doing things at 100%. But I do mind young players, every time you make 1 out of 10 plays, you're jumping up, pointing at yourself. Then the next time you're not even in the frame. I see that's the kind of attitude you got to get. They had to get that attitude now, not the player. So whoever they bring in here as coach, you're right. We need a pit bull in here. We need somebody to come in here. They're like, Doc, you know the story. If you guys didn't get over 100 yards rushing in the game on Sunday, we were scrimmaging on Tuesday.
But you called it right.
You
look at the mannerisms of the team. You down by 30 points and you celebrating. That just shows you there's a disconnect. It's a disconnect. It's horrible leadership. It's really, it's so many examples that the guy who owns the team should have had a meeting with all of his coordinators and head coaches, and he should have put them on notice. But hell, he didn't know what the hell was going on. So there was a blind leading the blind, and it's the result of it. And it's just, I'm so glad to even not have to cover it anymore. I don't know what to do because it's not fun. And Donna knows she had boots on the ground. You know, she actually had to go in there and listen to that crap and be around it. And it's just, I feel bad for her. They gave me a break. I'm glad.
But she gave
I
it a
wasn't
good
allowed
spin.
to.
Donna, you did well. You gave it a good spin each time.
Yeah, she sure did.
You come
It's
in
tough.
Hey, Tony, it's hard. It's hard. And I felt sorry for the players because when you're not put in a good position to win, and then during the course of the season, you get rid of some of your top players, you're already giving up on the season. And then, you know, with the coaching, like Rick always said, you threw up on yourself. They just did not put these players in position to win. And then the players also, some of them, I don't know who they are, was crying about a coach working them hard like they should have been working anyway. So, I mean, they've got to get rid of, and you talk about this, Tony, get rid of the dead weight that does not want to win. And that's the reason why I'm glad that there's some fresh air in the building to be able to move in the right direction. And those players that don't want to be there, I mean, it's hard when you think about the Terrys and the John Allens, and you talk about leadership and everything. Did they ever have any leaders on the team? I'm talking about real leaders like you all had when you played. People always hate to go back when they were winning. Well, we got to talk about when they were winning because they had solid people on those teams, from the coaching staff, from the general managers of prospect, and players that knew what it takes to win and wanted to win and were leaders. Did they ever have a leader on this team? Really?
Well, you know,
No.
leaders, right. And Rick know what I'm going to say. Leaders are not developed. They come in and they let everybody know who they are.
Yeah.
And the thing about it, that's what they did not have here. You have a lot of people talking a lot of different things. One thing you said before we go to this break, you feel sorry for these players. I don't feel sorry for someone that goes in on Monday and get a check for 1 week that's more than I made in a year. We'll be back in a moment.
What's up?
Well, you know, we've talked a little bit about the Commanders, and we're talking about what they did and did not do this year. And at the same time, we have high hopes of what may transpire next year. Let's talk about the teams this year that everybody thought was the top teams in the league. When you start talking about a Dallas, never lost a game at home. When you talk about Philadelphia, 10-1 and lose 6 out of the next 7, you wonder what's happening with this. When you talk about the beasts of the East, which Washington did not even win a game in their own division, but at the same time, the beasts of the East turned out to be the least of the East. Yeah, am I lying to you, Doc? Talk to me.
No, the value, and I've been trying to stress this, and I didn't do a great job all year. Because we know the benefit of coordinators. Like, you know how Richie Pettibone, you know his value.
Exactly.
Even though this town, I think, just underplayed him, but you understood what he brought to the table, especially as a former player. When you don't have a unit that's not producing, it's usually because the coach is terrible. The assistant coach, the position coach is not qualified to be in a room with professionals. And if you can't get people better, that's on you. Now, they had several defensive lines got fired here, and then they got Ryan and they got Z, and they had some real good production. But after they got rid of Sweat and 99, they fell off a cliff. Now,
Yes.
they did have some injuries, but that's on you. That's where your practice squad, you got to constantly be developing. Everybody gets hurt in this league. There was 11 backup quarterbacks playing in December. That's not an excuse. The Ravens been hurt more than anybody over the last 3 or 4 years. Deal with it. We were not prepared. The units capped out. Guys underachieved. And it's the same old thing. And then when you peel back the curtain, you realize you got some people that I guarantee won't be in this league next year. And if you don't believe me, just watch. See how many people on this staff are employed next year somewhere else.
Well, you know what? I tried to interview a couple of them the other day because they're going to be on the show with us.
Yeah.
Hey, Tony, You talked about the playoffs. You talked about Dallas a little bit and Philadelphia. You talked about the quarterback position there. Let's start with Dallas. Dak, when it's big games, Tony, playoff games and whatever, he just disappears. And they can't handle the pressure. But this Cowboy team all year long, they went on a hot streak for a minute, and everybody said, well, if they play at home, they need to play at home because they can't win on the road. Well, the way that Green Bay just destroyed them, they can't win there because Green Bay came in and had a great game plan against Dallas, and that offense never got on page, and they kept talking about Dak and Lamb and their communication in that playoff game. That whole offense and defense was not there. They looked like that they weren't prepared to play. And Rick talked about the coaching situation. The coaching, the coaches didn't call a good game or anything like that. And Jerry Jones' face was priceless at the end. But for them to come in and lay an egg like they did overall, but I like what Green Bay did. I mean, a young quarterback all year, looked like they wasn't even going to be in the playoffs, and ends up moving on. And then you talk about Philadelphia. Well, Tony, they haven't been the same all year. They got rid of their offensive and defensive coordinator, not rid of them, but they went elsewhere. And they seem like that they started strong, 10 wins, but fell off at the end with 5 losses in 6 games. But Philadelphia limped into the playoff. I mean, they had so many injuries. And when you got your top quarterback and wide receivers injured, you're going to be looking like that. But the defense for Philadelphia never performed to their capability this year. They were supposed to be the cream of the crop. Their defense, just like the Commanders, defense fell apart. 2 areas that are supposed to be the strength of those teams didn't show up.
But they did early. Now we have to give them credit. In the early part, they did, and I think that's what transpired with Dallas.
Early doesn't win games, Tony. It's the late.
Oh yeah, I know. I understand. I'm not defending them at all. I'm gonna just say that they did early. And one thing that we kept saying on the show each and every week, and maybe if more people would listen to us, you always look at Dallas. Everybody had looked at that defense, and I know that their offense, and we talk about Dak, but the defense was the reason they lost the other day. They were in shock. But the only reason they were in shock because when a team runs right at them, everybody want to beat them on the edges because they hear how Dallas. When I heard that their defensive end is getting 20 sacks a year, only weighs 218, 225, I'm running at him. I'm not going to pass rush with it. I don't have to pass every time he's in there. So Everybody got the clue. One thing you have always looked at, go back over the games this year. The games that they have the trouble is the games that they run between the guards and the tackles, when they run up the middle, not when they try to get outside and get to the end, because Dallas have a lot of fast people. Philadelphia, let's be truthful with their defense played well, but they fell apart in the end. But that's because their offense lost the confidence when the quarterback lost his confidence. You saw him from the last 7 games when he had the opportunity to run and make plays as he did in the beginning of the year. He didn't take that opportunity because he was hurt. I didn't even have to look at him and find out. But if we wouldn't check it right now, I bet his right knee is the one that was hurt. Because you can see things that he was not doing that he was doing at the beginning of the year. Then you go back to he's playing with a finger that no one knew about that was dislocated, but that's just an excuse. Everybody got it. I know Doctor played with, well, he wasn't on the field. That's right. He didn't play. He carried the water with his right hand when his left was hurt. But at the same time, if you take a look at it, it's no excuse for it. And we talk bad about Washington, but those teams need to be talked about as well, the whole East. But then you look about it, let's jump a little bit, and I'm going to jump back and forth here. Let's jump about Kansas City put the fins on ice. They took them fish and took them out of the water. And I mean, everybody talking about how great this is. And you start looking around the league. It comes down to great players, but it comes down to heart. No matter who's on that team, Rick, you know it. That's the one thing our team had. We had heart, and we didn't fight each other.
Yeah, they also, in their defense, their edge rushers gone for the season, both of them. The guys that came in and filled in were pretty good. I started to like the Dolphins a lot. Maybe it had to do with Hard Knocks watching in season, but I never believed that their running game, which was pretty good, because it's a lot like the Niners, they just didn't have enough. Backups aren't going to beat starters if you got to do it every week. You may have a good week here or there. They just ran out of gas, and they really never really beat any really good teams. They're like the Cowboys. If you look back at it, they feast on bad teams, and then we get into December, January, and this happens every year. The Cowboys are undisciplined. They always lead the game in penalties. They give away yardage. And it's just the way it is, and it's going to be that way. An owner can't be the most dominant person on a football team. It's got to be the head coach. And I hope they keep doing it. Don't change the thing. Keep it the way you got it. Let Jerry be the guy.
Yeah. Right. Was he mad? And I tell you what, on the television, they showed him. Boy, did you see that when he said, what's going on? And then the Philadelphia coach, I've been watching him for 30 years. He was hot too. And you know what, Donnie, do you think that's going to be some decisions made because of the embarrassment of those two teams? And then you take a look at the Dolphins. Everybody is going to say, okay, the weather was bad. They couldn't handle it. And they did. I'm going to tell you what, I don't know if I could have showed up in a game like that with that 8 and 7. Yeah, you would have. I played it. No, we would have. Yeah, you would have. I knew the family was at home waiting for that bag to come in for food.
It wasn't no cakewalk in New England. Let me tell you what.
Right.
People, how do you do it to get that check? And we did it for little checks. You know what you would have done for a big check. Yeah.
But if you
hey Tony, Miami team coach, they look cold. They look like they couldn't get out the gate because I would have come up with the injury.
Hey, so then they could have won. They could have had home field. That's why when you know you got thin blood, win and make sure people got to come to you. They blew it. That's all
they need
and you know what? When we come back in the next segment, we got to talk about. That's why Buffalo, who everybody was talking about, who everybody's saying was through early, who not winning games big, but they're winning, and now they got somebody coming to the house.
That's right.
Buffalo may be back in the game now. I tell you what, they're a team that I wouldn't want to play. But we'll talk a little bit about them as well as Houston when we come back.
Again, this workout that we're about to do, that I'm about to do, I'm about to show you guys. It only takes 30 minutes. 40, 20 twice, 40 seconds on, 20 seconds off. 40 seconds on, and then you move to the next station. So when you finish that first exercise, you got 20 seconds to get to the next exercise. Now the minute, like I just showed you, it's 20 seconds. And when the weight is real light, just make sure you use it wisely by going down slow to get the extra work. Burn those muscles. That's one set. Of course, you know there's another set, which I ain't gonna do. Go to the treadmill again. This time we're on the treadmill. Again, we'll do this another 40 seconds on. Jump off. Wait 20 seconds. Jump on again. Another 40 seconds.
Well, another great fitness tip from Ricky Irvins as he whips us into shape, Tony, and he's still waiting for you. And talking about whipping into shape, you got some great playoff games coming up, Tony, as far as the Lions and the Bucks. You got Green Bay at San Francisco. the Buffalo and Kansas City meet up again. And you got the Texans at the Ravens. Good games coming up this weekend, Tony.
I tell you, I hate to say one thing. I think this may be Kansas City's last week playing for this year. I know that they say they got Mahorn and things are going a little bit shaky because they lost Bieniemy as well as they lost a great playmaker. But at the same time, I see other flaws within this team, and they're more coming into movie stars right now. Things are not going their way, and it's just not rolling the way it should be. Right, but I think it starts with Bieniemy not being there. Doc, when you take a look at this team right now, the talent is not different, but it's just like when we were older. You can start seeing things. Like the quarterback, Kelsey, he may be a good dater, but he's not the same tight end he used to be. You look at that running game, if you look at them the last few years, they've always settled on having a great running game. Running game is average at best. No wide receivers really scare anybody. Mahorn is the major threat, and he's the one who's going to make it happen. And I think the run is over with them right now. They're going up in Buffalo. Now, yes, they did play in cold weather. Now, Kansas City 7 below is a lot different than Buffalo 7 below. You've been there, Doc. You know what I'm talking about.
Dude, I can't wait. You called it. Well, Novena, that was a great tip she gave you. That Buffalo right now, if I would have to go and lay some money on somebody, just from the eyeball test, when your quarterback, who I always love him, but he scares me because he's just takes too many risks. Now he's backed off, but when he wants to drop it in the overdrive, he's unbelievable. They run the ball now. They run the ball, and
yes.
The defense, I mean, up front, they're impressive. But I'm not going against Kansas City till I see a stake in their heart because they find a way. And Andy and this kid, Mahomes, yeah, they got a lot of stuff. They're busy, but, you know, they handle it well. I can't go against them. I have to see it with my own eyes.
What do you think, though? What strength can they down and what can they bring to the table that's different to stop it? Now, Buffalo has it in their favor. They're playing all right, but the one thing I see about Buffalo, they don't finish games strong. They always can come back and win.
Right.
What do you think this Kansas City can do to really forge ahead and keep them under control for the whole game?
You said it right, Tony. Buffalo is almost like a Dallas, can't finish the big games. I think that they improved this year when they changed their offensive coordinator because they started to play better there. But I'm like Rick, I'm not going to go against Kansas City because when you got a Patrick Mahomes there, no matter how many receivers have been dropping the ball all season long, they come to play in big games. They get ready for big games. And the running game is going to be so key. And as Rick said, Buffalo finally got a running game. Teams with the running game is going to be productive in the playoffs. But I think with Mahomes, I think their offensive line is solid as far as Kansas City's. So they're going to be able to protect Patrick Mahomes. So I just think that the quarterback play is going to come down to that. Can Josh Allen keep his cool under the pressure times? I mean, he's played better, but this is the championship game, Tony, a big game right here. And I think that when you look at the quarterback play, I think you give the edge to Kansas City, their offensive line also. But I think Kansas City still wins this. And the weather factor, Tony, won't be matter for either team because they're used to this. No matter Buffalo weather, Kansas City weather. It was blistering cold up there in Kansas City. But I just think that the quarterback play, as far as Andy Reid's and that team right there, they've got something up their sleeve. And I just think that they're going to come to play big in this game.
Point of information. Last weekend, they were able to play in Kansas City at 7 below. Buffalo had to cancel the game. It may be 7 to 10 below, and it may be 15 inches of snow.
But it was warmer, Tony. It was warmer in Buffalo.
It doesn't matter, Don. I'm telling you. Rick can tell you. You notice Rick not saying anything. It's treacherous to go to Buffalo. Now, it used to be. I don't know if it's the same way right now. But I think you know what? Let's don't forget now. We done jumped over Houston. Other than the quarterback guys, why should everyone be afraid of them? I think they got a well-rounded team, but everybody talk about the quarterback. Houston have come out. They've had good games, bad games, but at the same time, they are there. And I think we should take a look at them. What do you think about Houston, Doc? Give me a thought. Well, wait a minute. Get the crayons out and give them to Carol so she can write this down for you.
I think Novena will agree with me on this.
Okay.
When you're a defensive-minded coach, everybody says you can't have a defensive-minded coach. Belichick has shown us the way. You can have anybody there if your quarterback's on fire. Their quarterback is on fire. It's a young team that was terrible, and now they're getting a taste of being popular. There's a flow, man. Ryan has empowered his enthusiasm, same thing he did in Frisco with these guys. They play hard, they play fast. They remind me a lot of some of our early teams that nobody expects you to do it. And pretty soon you start doing it week after week. They got a spirit going, and they got talent. So Slowick is doing a hell of a job bringing a young quarterback along. And when you got that mojo, you know it, you felt it, you've had it on multiple teams. You can't describe it, but you can look at it and go, they have it. Houston has it.
And, you know, you look at that mojo, and when we come back, we got to talk about it, and we haven't talked this week. The two best teams in the league. And now everybody is saying these two teams. When you look up in Baltimore and you go out to Frisco, you got the real deal. We'll talk a little bit more about them. We're talking about the winners and the losers of the world. We'll be back.
In the Minute with Tony and Donna. You can catch them weekly on their podcast, and you can also subscribe to their YouTube channel, In the Minute.
Tony McGee's Pro Football Plus Speakers Bureau offers you various opportunities to connect with former and current players along with Tony and the crew. For more information, go to redmagplus.com Speakers Bureau.
One more thing.
39 years. Not many shows can claim a streak like that, but Tony McGee's Pro Football Plus sure can. Tony McGee, a burgundy and gold legend on the field and for decades now on the air, is once again excited to bring his one-of-a-kind program to his legion of fans across the Mid-Atlantic. How to last so long? By always delivering unique, insightful, entertaining, and oh yeah, fun, lots of fun, week in and week out. Tony's cast includes the legendary Gary Clark, the impeccable Donna Hopkins on the burgundy and gold beat for decades now, as well as icons from Washington football, past and present, not to mention the Pro Football Hall of Famers who flock to Tony's show year in and year out. There is not a show dedicated to football fans like this one, and the proof is in the almost 4 decades that Tony McGee's Pro Football Plus has been the go-to stop for fans who want content that only Tony and crew can deliver. This season promises to be yet another exciting one for the team, the league, the show, and its fans, and we want you to be a part of it. There are sponsorship opportunities to fit your business's goals, 30 and 60-second targeted commercial spots, weekly segments dedicated to promoting your brand, on-air guest opportunities for you to share your company's mission, and so on. We'd love to discuss tailoring a sponsorship program that is just right for you, both in scope and in cost. For sponsorship opportunities, call 703-282-0792 or email info@redmagplus.com. Be a part of this historic season on this historic show, Tony McGee's Pro Football Plus. 39 years and the millions of viewers over those years can't be wrong.
In the break, we started talking about the two best teams we think in the NFL. We were talking about Buffalo and not Buffalo. I got Buffalo in my mind. We were talking about Baltimore and San Francisco. But before we do that, look at these picks because it's going to go down to the wire. Speaking of going down to the wire, Don, these are the best two teams. Give me your thoughts on them very quick.
The Lions, the Ravens, and the 49ers, and the Kansas City Chiefs. That's who I'm picking.
Yeah, I like that. Now, I ain't got no problem with that. It's a put up or shut up for the Ravens. The Ravens are too good not to get into the big game. This has got to be the year.
Yeah, I look at them, and we kind of look at the same picture, the same thing. Injuries will be the thing that plays a part. And I will be back next week one more time to see who is right about this. But at the same time, you know what we do? We don't say goodbye. We say in the minute.
Well, great show today. And we're going to let John Butler, friend of the Tony McGee's Pro Football Plus TV show, take us out with some of his great hits.
Of your belly,
From your heart.
sound it out loud so they may know why you were here. I'm here to bring joy, peace, hope, love, mercy, and grace to somebody who may have wanted to give up and may have wanted to quit, and